Part 23. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 221. Although the era of great pirates has begun, the Navy is also extremely busy. But many things about Roger have not been dealt with yet. For example, this guy surrendered from the South China Sea, so what on earth was this guy doing during the period when he disappeared? The world government has reason to doubt whether Roger left any bloodline or something. Therefore, a large-scale manhunt was launched in the South China Sea. The focus is on Bait Lila Island. The world government is here to arrest pregnant women and women who have just given birth. And those innocent babies. Of course, in order not to cause too much public dissatisfaction, the Navy was the agency responsible this time. They still had justice in their hearts. Although they arrested many, no lives were lost. Only after careful investigation one by one can the suspicion be eliminated, can they be released. It's almost like going through all the 18 generations of your ancestors. If there is any problem, you should leave it for observation. The head of the Navy on Bait Lila Island in the South China Sea is Lieutenant General Karp. And instead of living on a warship, he lived in a beautiful girl's home. Regarding this, people in the Navy and on the island will gossip to some extent. It seems like this guy Garp is attracted by her beauty. What's that woman's name? By the way, Liu. In fact, Garp really took a big blame for this incident. After all, he did take a child away from here after Liu gave birth. In his heart, he knew that this was Roger's son, but the others didn't know. You, Garp, have been living in someone else's house for so long, and they finally gave birth to a child. What is this? Are you saying that Garp is not a womanizer? So on the surface, Garp told many people that he was this child's godfather or something, and everyone nodded along. In fact, secretly, everyone regarded the child that Garp later sent to the East China Sea as his illegitimate child. Do you think this is cheating or not? The key is, you can't tell others about this yet. As soon as Garp explained, Roger was exposed. When the time comes, he will bear the responsibility and the child will die. But no matter what, it's just tidbits of news. Even though Garp is the Vice Admiral of the Navy headquarters and a hero of the Navy, he is still a man. His wife has been dead for many years, and his son has also run away from the Navy. He is now several decades old. Suddenly, he met a beautiful girl in the South China Sea. He fell in love with her and wanted to live there for a while and practice trumpeting. What happened? Therefore, this is not a big issue that needs to be addressed online. Did you hear that? That bastard Garp seems to have found a wife in Nanhai. The Warring States General was sitting in Marineford's office and said to Zifa with a smile. Ha ha ha, second spring. No wonder, that guy Darag ran away, Garp thought. It's a bit lonely, but at the same time, without Dalag by his side, how could Garp have loosened his shackles, Admiral Zifa said with a smile. Originally, he was planning to retire after Roger died, but it turned out to be a good thing. Now that such a big thing has happened to the Navy, Marshal Cyborg's promotion plan has been ruined. At a time like this, Zifa he said he was going to retire, which was too much to worry about. So he didn't mention it and just waited. Ha 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 ha, you are right, if Darag is not with Garp, Garp will be freed from his shackles, the Warring States General said with a smile. Also, it must be a bit embarrassing to find a stepmother for him when his biological son is around. Now that his biological son ran away and got married without telling him, Garp retaliated by finding a stepmother for Darag. It's not like everyone can't understand the stepmother. After all, this guy has a brain problem for a day or two. Everyone seems to be surprised by the weird things he does. It's you, Garp is married for the second time. You can't, how? Will you spend your whole life with Ziahe in the Navy? General Zifa asked with a smile. The Warring States General's face turned red. Just as he was about to explain something, the phone bug on the table suddenly remembered. In order to avoid this embarrassment, he breathed a sigh of relief and quickly answered the phone bug. Then his expression changed, and then gradually turned black. Impossible. The only people who know this news are us generals and some lieutenant generals. Which of them doesn't know the general idea? How could such important information be leaked? The Warring States general said angrily. Darag? That's even more impossible. He is a person who knows the importance of things. How could he join forces with pirates and do such a thing? The Warring States general argued. Then, the phone bug said something again, and Warring States' face became a little embarrassed. What if this is a coincidence? Orgrim and the others happened to be in Rogtown in advance. Coincide? During the Warring States period, by coincidence, more than 30 artillery pieces were brought into Rogtown and hidden? Is it a coincidence that so many pirates have settled in Rogtown? Let me tell you, CP-0 is already investigating this matter. If no evidence can be found, forget it. If they really find out something is wrong with Dalag, you understand. As soon as the voice fell, the person on the phone hung up. Zenguo looked confused. Zifa frowned and said, "What's wrong?" Marshall said, CP-0 Mad Dog over there, report that our Navy headquarters leaked first-level secrets to unrelated people, that is Darag, who caused the incident in Rogtown, the Warring States general said with a frown. Shit. What does it mean? Admiral Zifa said angrily. The CP agency and the Navy headquarters already dislike each other. This time they suddenly laid such a big blame on the Navy headquarters. It would be strange if General Zifa didn't explode with anger. At present, the Marshal has also sent people to investigate, the Warring States general murmured softly. Then both Zifa and him fell silent. After a long time, Zifa suddenly said, "You said, that kid Dalag wouldn't really do anything irrational, would he?" The Warring States general frowned. After being silent for a while, he shook his head and said, "Isn't it possible? It's better to contact Garp about this matter first." South China Sea, Bade Lira Island. At this time, Garp lived in Portcas de Luyu's home. In this house, you can even feel some traces of Roger's past. Garp was sitting in the small courtyard with a teacup on the stone table. He was holding the teacup and savoring the aroma of the tea. Garp's eyes were a little vague. Before coming here, he was hesitant. Was Luyu arrested and executed on the order of the world government, or was it, what about following your own heart? This choice was made by Garp as soon as he met Luyu. What reason is there to execute a pregnant mother? Garp searched the whole world and his own heart, but he couldn't find this reason. Roger is guilty, and his sin is unforgivable, but his wife and his children are not guilty. Just when Garp was drinking tea and thinking about these things, Luyu walked in from outside the courtyard carrying a vegetable basket. It seems that she has just gone to buy vegetables. Judging from her beautiful figure, how does Luyu look like a pregnant woman at this time? I said, if you are not in good health, don't go out and walk around at will. What if something unexpected happens? Garp looked at Luyu and said helplessly. The more I don't go out, the more people will be suspicious of me, right? Only by appearing in front of everyone with this attitude will their doubts be dispelled. Luyu smiled gently at Garp and said, "It's really hard on you. What's so good about that bastard Roger?" When Garp said this, he paused again. After all, Roger is dead. It's somewhat inappropriate to scold someone's late husband in front of his widow. Luju knew that Garp didn't mean any harm. She smiled, touched her belly and said, "I have nothing to do with this kid, that's the real pain." Well, Garp shook his head helplessly and said, "If I had known this, why did I go to see Roger that night as soon as I had a sudden thought? Isn't this looking for trouble for oneself? 2 days ago, there was news from the headquarters that I might be asked to go back to report on my work. During my absence, You should pay attention to your own safety, Garp said softly. As soon as he finished speaking, the phone on the table rang. Garp shook his head helplessly and said, "Look, it's Warring States, probably here to rush me." Garp didn't shy away from anything and answered the phone directly. Insect. Warring States period. Are you here to urge me to come to Marineford? Got it, I'm going back now. After I go back, I'm going to take a leave of absence. Bait Lila Island is a great place. I plan to come here to rest for a while. After Garp answered the phone, he said directly. The Warring States general's expression changed, a little strange, but when he thought about it, it was normal for Garp to be a little happy and reluctant to miss his childhood. If he wanted to take a vacation, just right. After all, if something like this happens in the Navy, Garp must avoid suspicion first. You don't have to come back. I approved your leave directly, the Warring States general said quickly. Garp was stunned for a moment and asked in surprise, "What do you mean?" "Something happened here in the headquarters, involving Durag." "Let me tell you," the Warring States general quickly told Garp these nonsense things. Garp was stunned. "What the hell is this? Are you saying that my son got involved with pirates and caused the Rogue Town incident? Is this really sick? I, Garp, a naval hero, and my son will become a world criminal? Ha 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 ha, this is really a big joke. How could it be possible? Those CP agency bitches, if they don't do their job all day long, they will hold back our Navy," Cap cursed. "You're right, those bastards," the Warring States general also cursed first, and then said, "It just so happens that you have a new life there. You have been really busy these years. If you want to take a vacation, just take it for a while. I approve it." "Wait, what does new life mean?" Garp asked a little strangely. "Haven't you found your second spring?" the Warring States general asked in surprise. "What second spring?" Garp was confused. "Just pretend, we all know here, you met a beautiful girl on Bait Lila Island, her name is Liu, right? Aren't you already living in other people's homes?" "Really?" Warring States said with some dissatisfaction. "We have been comrades in arms for decades, what's there to be embarrassed about?" "No, listen to my explanation," Garp said quickly. Okay, I'm still busy, just take a vacation and hang up." The Warring States general hung up the phone directly. Garp looked confused, and then cursed, "Damn Roger, my whole life's reputation has been ruined in the hands of you, a bastard." At this time, Luju had already walked into the room with a blushing face. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 222. The Warhammer Pirates' temporary base in Avalon. Some maids just came out of Orgrim's room carrying a half-eaten fruit plate. "I heard that Mr. Chewie is in a bad mood today," a little maid asked an older maid next to her. "Yes, Lord Orgrim has been in a bad mood these past few days and has been talking about the Admiral." Britannia shook her head sadly. Britannia was originally the maid responsible for Orgrim's daily life in Melview. Later Orgrim decided to come to Avalon and took her directly. Taken away together. Now, Britannia has become the head maid under Orgrim. "Admiral, is it the legendary Golden Lion?" the little maid asked curiously. "That's right, you all just joined, so many things are unclear. Lord Orgrim and the Admiral are like father and son. They had a very deep relationship when they were in Melview. Now, the Admiral is unfortunately captured by the Navy. Was imprisoned in the deep-sea prison. Every time Lord Orgrim thought about this, he felt so painful that he could not sleep at night." Brittany nodded and said softly. "Mr. Chewie is really a man who values love and justice," the little maid said with some admiration. Britannia smiled when she heard this and said with some pride, "Of course, don't look at the outside world and say that Lord Orgrim is the most cruel and evil pirate. Actually, Lord Orgrim is very generous to us servants." Yes, that day, Satania accidentally broke a teacup of Master Zui, and the hot tea spilled on Master Zui's lap. I was in the room at the time, and I almost cried out of fear. Sada, the same goes for Nia, but Mr. Hammer wasn't angry at all. He was still concerned about whether Satania was burned. In the end, he comforted us, the little maid said excitedly. But as she spoke, her face became a little blushing. It was obvious that the comfort was not that simple. Yes, Lord Orgrim is obviously a good man who values love and justice, is generous and friendly to others, but it happens that the Navy, which claims to be righteous, and the world government that makes us all miserable, slander him. Reputation, it really pisses me off, Britannia said angrily. While the little maids were chatting about these gossips, Lucci came out from the corner of the courtyard. As soon as he saw Britannia, he had a look on his face. Laughed. Good afternoon, Zyluki. Brittany greeted Lucci with a smile. Although you can never see the sun on Avalon Island and is always shrouded in the night sky. But on Avalon Island, there are also many people who will plants that glow by themselves emit fluorescence every noon, and there are a lot of them planted here. At the same time, the lights in the courtyard are bright and do not affect the line of sight at all. Coupled with some reminders such as clocks, many people, you can still tell the difference between day and night. Good afternoon, Miss Brittany. Lucci said with a smile. Ever since he was brought to Melview, Brittany and others have been taking care of him, so Lucci has very deep feelings for these maids. By the way, Miss Brittany, Lord Orgrim invited us to come for a meeting. Lord Beckman and the others will be arriving soon, Lucci reminded him as he thought of something. When Brittany heard this, she quickly said thank you, little Lookie, for the reminder. I will prepare tea and fruit plates for the adults. After saying hello, Lookie walked to Orgrim excitedly. In front of the house, he knocked on the door and heard a reply from inside, then he opened the door and walked in. As soon as he entered, he saw Orgrim holding a sea chart in his hand and studying something. This room is also brightly lit. Orgrim is sitting in the room. There is a large desk. Under the desk, there are 2 rows of sofas, and a coffee table is placed in the middle of the sofa. Orgrim's doom hammer can be seen standing in the corner. There are no luxurious decorations in the room and it looks very simple. It's not even as good as Orgrim's living quarters on the Black Narwhal, no, it's probably not even 1% as luxurious as there. Yo, here you go, Lucci. Orgrim asked with a smile. Lucci nodded a little shyly, and then asked with concern, Lord Orgrim, are you in a better mood recently? Orgrim was stunned for a moment after hearing this. Why am I in a good mood? I've been eating well recently, sleeping well, and that bastard Stussy gave me another 10 billion, so of course I'm in a good mood. He almost continued to play music and then danced. But soon, Orgrim seemed to realize something. By the way, I have been building a character recently, and I am the loyal and courageous Orgrim. So Orgrim's originally surprised face suddenly darkened, and then his bright eyes were filled with a trace of sadness, as if Lucci had just mentioned the sad thing that he had covered up. Then, his arms were trembling slightly, he picked up a cup of tea from the table, took a sip and said with a forced smile, what are you in a good mood for? I'm very happy recently, not sad at all. Lucci looked at Orgrim's trembling arms, and felt sad in his heart. Lord Orgrim is so powerful, and the extremely heavy war hammer is safe in his hands, but at this time, he is just when I picked up the teacup, my arms trembled a little. How much bitterness and pain was contained in it. I must learn from Lord Orgrim in the future and become a man of love and justice. If something happens to Lord Orgrim in the future, I, Lucci, will risk my life to save him, Lucci thought to himself. Lord Orgrim, you don't have to force your smile like this. We all know, that you miss Lord Shisky, Lucci said distressedly. Orgrim smiled awkwardly. He was such a big man, and it was really hard to deceive a child here. At this moment, the door of the house was pushed open again. Unlike Lucci, a polite guy, Beckman had no habit of knocking on the door when he entered Orgrim's house. Following Beckman were most of the current cotters of the Warhammer Pirates. Neiman, Sphinx, Rengar, Katarina Dupont, and the trainee crew member Enel. That's right, Lucci is not considered a leader of the Warhammer Pirates now, he is just a little guy, and everyone regards him as their junior. As for Enilu, he was barely a grown man at this time, he was also very diligent, and he had some strength, so he was approved as a trainee crew member. In fact, Enilu was already mentally prepared at this time, as long as Lord Orgrim asked him again if he wanted to eat the thunder fruit or something. He decided to live up to Lord Orgrim's expectations. Even if the thunder fruit was really stinking shit, he would still bite it. However, it seems that everyone has been very busy recently, so no one has mentioned this matter for the time being. As soon as Beckman and others entered the door, they saw the little guy Lucci rushing to Orgrim's legs, hugging Orgrim's thigh and crying. "Lord Orgrim, don't be sad. Lord Shiski will definitely be very pleased if he knows," Lucci cried. Orgrim was stunned for a moment, and quickly pulled Lucci up, and then said in a deep voice, "Stop talking nonsense, I'm not sad, okay, don't worry about me. I've heard from Miss Brittany and the others that sometimes you can't sleep all night long, sitting in the courtyard and whispering the words ski boss softly." After Lucci was dragged up by Orgrim, he was still mumbling. "Don't listen to their nonsense, I slept soundly." Orgrim patted Lucci on the head and said. "I also felt a little emotional in my heart. This rumor is really terrible. I obviously go to bed on time every day and have sweet dreams. Why is it spread like this outside?" Beckman looked at the two guys in confusion at this time. He touched his chin and thought strangely, did I misunderstand something? In fact, Orgrim has been thinking about Boss G? Yes, after all, Orgrim does value friendship. I feel a little ashamed. Beckman thought this, while Sphinx and Rengar were so moved that they almost cried. The two of them were cotters under Shiji. Although Rengar later decided to align with his idol Orgrim, how could he not have feelings for Shiji in his heart? Not to mention the Sphinx, she has always respected Shiji as her father. "Mr. Hammer, Rengar said with some emotion. But before he finished speaking, Orgrim interrupted him with a wave of his hand. Okay, I've called you here today, not to hold a memorial service. Sit down, everyone," Orgrim said quickly. "If I let these guys continue, I may not even be able to handle it with my shamelessness. Could it be that I, Orgrim, am really so loyal? If there is a list of top 10 people who inspired pirates this year, can I, Orgrim, not be on the list? Well, that should be right. After all, I, Orgrim, value love and justice." Sphinx and others sat on the sofa very casually, and then Britannia walked in quietly with a group of maids, holding a tray with teacups, juice, and other drinks on it. Some snacks and fruits. After putting down their things, they backed out very sensibly. Then, Orgrim came over from behind the desk, sat down on his single sofa, holding a chart in his hand, and said, "I called you here today because I want to discuss it with you. Questions about Imperialton. Impelton." Everyone was shocked. It seemed that Mr. Chui was indeed like those rumors. He couldn't bear the pain of missing Boss Shiji. "Are you planning to rob the prison?" "Alas, let me tell you the truth, everyone here has been favored by Mr. Shiji. Now that he is suffering in Impelton, what does it mean for us to enjoy the good life in Avalon? After thinking about it, I still feel that whether it is for our Warhammer pirates or for the kindness in our hearts, we must find a way to rescue Boss Shiji. Otherwise, can we still be considered human beings?" Orgrim said earnestly. "Mr. Chui is right, although we are pirates, to be pirates, we must also have friendship," Sphinx said excitedly. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 223. Orgrim smiled, nodded to the little Lolita Sphinx, then raised the chart in his hand and said, I studied the waters of Imperialton carefully for a while, and finally I still found that this place is really not easy to conquer. Until now, I don't have any clue, so I asked you to come up with some ideas. After hearing this, the Sphinx said directly, isn't this simple? I have already thought about it. Imperial is within the Gate of Justice, protected by whirlpool currents, and ordinary ships cannot enter. There are all Neptunes inside, but we are different. Our black narwhal can fly. We flew directly over, and then everyone rushed into Imperial and killed everyone inside. No, can you rescue Boss Shiji? Orgrim was dumbfounded after hearing Sphinx's words. Damn it, I thought Orgrim, was already reckless enough. You Sphinx is better than me. How reckless. This plan sounds like a lot of things, but to sum it up simply, isn't it just to kill them all, and then leave with a pat on the back? Before Orgrim could speak, Beckman awkwardly pulled the Sphinx's ponytail, and then said, ahem, the kid is talking nonsense, don't mind me. What nonsense, isn't it right? The Sphinx said, very dissatisfied. If Impelton was so easy to capture, it wouldn't have been called an impregnable wall for 800 years, Sphinx. Daipeng smiled and said. As soon as the Sphinx heard Daipeng's words, he said angrily, you know you are right with me, I will shoot you in the head. Seeing that these two guys were about to fight, Orgrim quickly patted the table and said, sit down. After calming down the scene, Orgrim said, Sphinx, don't be so impulsive, listen to everyone's opinions. Beckman smiled at this time and said, we must save Boss Shiji, but we can't rush through it, otherwise it will be in vain. As he spoke, he took the sea chart from Orgrim's hand, pointed to it, and said, look, the Gate of Justice and the whirlpool current. The deep sea prison, Impelton, the island that never sleeps, Judiciary Island, and the Navy headquarters, Marineford. These three islands, under the construction of the Gate of Justice, have formed three very strange routes. That is the whirlpool current route. Even though these three islands are not very close to each other, they are known as the three fortresses of justice. Why? Because no matter which island you set off from, going to another island is very fast. The warship rides the whirlpool current, so the speed should not be too fast. We cannot regard it as a single existence. We must treat these three places as a whole, Beckman said softly. After a slight pause, he looked at Sphinx and asked with a smile, Sphinx, do you expect that according to your plan just now, we will attack Imperialton? How long it takes? The Sphinx was stunned for a moment, looked at Orgrim and then at the cotters present, and then said hesitantly, half a day. At least half a day, right? Beckman asked. At least for a long time, this was all about the best outcome. Imperial is very mysterious, and no one knows the power inside it. Orgrim only knows that Magellan, as for this guy, he should be the deputy director there. Although his poison fruit was intercepted by himself and Beckman, Magellan cannot be a guy who only relies on the poison fruit. His personal strength must be, it is also very powerful, and without the poison fruit, who knows what kind of messy abilities he will have. There are always a lot of devil fruits in the hands of the world government. But these are not problems, and Orgrim will not let him go. In my heart, if I look at Impelton alone, Orgrim does have the confidence to just go in like the Sphinx said. But the problem is roughly the same. Sphinx hesitated. Okay, let's calculate it as half a day, then let me tell you how quickly the Navy headquarters can support Impelton, Beckman said in a deep voice. After a slight pause, he pointed to the whirlpool current and continued, starting from Marine headquarters Marineford, the warship passes through the Gate of Justice and takes the whirlpool current to reach Impelton in just 2 hours. Do you understand the meaning of this? Katerina de Pen frowned slightly when she heard this, and then said the meaning is, once Impelton raises the alarm, we will not face the jailers advancing into the city, but even the generals of the Navy headquarters who quickly rush to support. Yes, and as Orgrim and as our Warhammer pirates, this support, 9 times out of 10, they will be at the admiral level, and we will even face dozens of naval masters. Beckman nodded and said. Everyone's faces sank when they heard this. This is a bit difficult. Orgrim also nodded. In fact, he originally thought this matter was too simple. After all, he, in my impression, Luffy and Blackbeard, these two idiots, were able to go to Impelton to cause trouble, and successfully turn this deep-sea prison into a sieve. Then they, the Warhammer pirates, have so many people they can fight. Master, just hurry up and break into Impelton, it shouldn't be a big problem, right? But the more I researched, the more I discovered that Impelton was not unworthy of his reputation. Blackbeard marshaled that bastard Tiki and Luffy were able to successfully cause trouble there. There is a very important factor, and that is that Marine Headquarters Marineford is going all out to confront the Whitebeard pirates. The Whitebeard pirates were blocking the bullets for these two groups. Otherwise, the high-level combat power of the Navy headquarters could arrive in an instant and directly wipe out Teach, Luffy and the others in Imperial. This is the main reason. Because of the war, the 3 fortresses of justice that were originally a trinity were split up. In this way, Imperialton was at its weakest. It was against this background that Impelton was breached. But now, no one on the sea would attack Marine Headquarters Marineford, so the 3 fortresses of justice, in this context, are a trinity. If Orgrim takes people to Impelton, all the experts from the CP agency and the Navy headquarters may be there in the blink of an eye. Then it's really just for nothing. They don't want to save Shiji. Everyone goes in together, reunited, and the whole family is neat and tidy. This problem is what has been bothering Orgrim, and it is also the reason why he has been hesitant. He definitely had to save Shiji, but he couldn't be reckless. He needed a reasonable plan. He couldn't come up with this plan on his own. Sphinx stopped talking nonsense at this time, and instead said a little dully, "What should we do?" After hearing this, Beckman said directly, step by step, we must eliminate the first means. Just attack Impelton directly. This is the stupidest method with the lowest success rate. As he spoke, Beckman touched his chin and said, the best way is to find a way to sneak into Imperial. It would be great if we could successfully rescue Boss Shiji secretly. As soon as Beckman finished speaking, the rest of the people nodded, but soon everyone was stunned for a moment. Then, Neiman turned his attention to Katerina de Pen, and then Rengar and the others also he looked over. Katerina de Pen was still nodding along, but when she saw everyone looking at her, she was also a little confused. What to do? What do you want to do? Dai Peng was a little panicked and asked. Dai Peng, isn't your ability the ability to transform? The degree of camouflage is 100%. Most people can't see the problem at all. If you become a naval admiral, for example, during the Warring States period, wouldn't it be possible to sneak into Imperial directly? Sphinx said in surprise. When Dai Peng heard this, he panicked. Was he going to push her into the fire pit? Don't talk nonsense, Sphinx. If you can enter Impelton by transforming into a random person, would that be too simple? What do you think Imperialton is? Even if I become an admiral, they will confirm with the Navy headquarters first, right? By then everything will be revealed, Dai Peng said helplessly. Dai Peng, have no objection to saving Boss Shiji, but you bastards want me to go alone. Isn't it too boring? It's too much. It's everyone's responsibility to care for Shiji. Dai Peng is right, it is not that simple, but this might as well be an entry point, Beckman said with a smile. Then he said, now that this entry point is available, then we have new needs. We need to have the disguise of the Navy headquarters. If this is so recent, what's so great about it? If any of the pirates are caught, the Navy headquarters will definitely send them to Impelton. At this time, if we can intercept the Navy headquarters escort ship, it will be equivalent to having a vest. Under this premise, it will be much more convenient to enter Impelton. Orgrim touched his chin, and then said, you mean, let's do a favor to the Navy headquarters, think of a way to give them a big gift package. If necessary, you can do this. After all, we have friends now, right? Beckman said with an evil smile. Then everyone thought of Queen Stussy, who gave them money. What a good person. At the same time, Plank, who did not come to the meeting, also received an important document in his hand. He looked shocked, took the information and ran to Orgrim's residence. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 224. Beckman smiled, and then, as if he had been prepared, he took out a stack of reward orders from the handbag he brought with him. In the New World, I have picked out some of the biggest pirates with bounties of over 100 million. Please take a look. Let's find someone to deal with them, and then give them to our good friend, Queen Stussy. Ha ha ha, Beckman said with a smile. Although he said it lightly, everyone sounded very domineering. The great pirate in the New World with a bounty of over 100 million, just do it casually. Judging from the current power of the Warhammer pirates, it seems that they can really be dealt with. Gee ha 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 ha, this makes it seem as if we guys have become the Navy. I think back then, when I was in Bihai, I was also the leading garrison officer in the town of Ogalan. At that time, my biggest the wish is to be able to uphold justice and protect one side, but then that son of a bitch Navy, alas, it's really an insult to justice. When I think about it, the righteous Navy that I cherish so much are all this kind of ungrateful people. Are there any good people in this world? Forget it, let's go to sea and be a pirate. So I took my brothers out to sea and killed them all in one go. Orgrim was in high spirits and started bragging. But before he finished speaking, Beckman quickly interrupted Orgrim's bragging. After all, let him continue talking, who knows where he could go. This guy drank too much, so bragging chi niubi, can it blow from dark to dawn? Okay, we all know that Orgrim is great, so stop talking nonsense. As Beckman spoke, he handed a reward order in his hand to Orgrim. Orgrim muttered a few words unhappily. What is nonsense? This is the captain's motto. I just want to tell you that this young man will inevitably make a mistake. But if you know your mistakes and you can correct them, there is no greater good. Aren't we just preparing to uphold justice, eradicate the strong and punish the evil? Are you still a pirate? Can Boss Shiji be saved? This is one thing. Have you ever done anything that a serious person would do? Beckman said helplessly. Orgrim's face twitched and he was about to speak. All right, evil skull crusher. Neiman said with a smile. That's right, the public enemy of mankind. Katerina Depen also joked with a smile. Lord Beckman is right, lion disciple. Rengar also suppressed a smile. Enelu's face was stiff, and he was about to defend Lord Orgrim. Sphinx said excitedly, that's right, Mr. Chui, you are the source of chaos. Your words depend on your identity. That's what you said. Do you want to be the king of the Shishibukai? Orgrim said angrily. I reiterate again, these names are all. Why, if Doomhammer is a good thing. Come on, stop bragging here, we are pirates, why should we build an arch? Beckman gave the final blow. Orgrim shook his head sadly and said, oh, my family is unfortunate. I can only fall into this situation because of you scoundrels. As he said this, he stopped bragging. After all, there was no audience. Can his mouth speak louder than all their mouths? One day, I will write an autobiography myself and teach you what it means to have an upright heart, Orgrim muttered, looking at the reward order in his hand, and then suppressed the word justice. Yo! Moonlight Moria has a bounty of more than 200 million? Orgrim said in a funny tone. This guy Moria, well, it's hard to describe. Before meeting him, Orgrim thought he might be a hero from the British coast. After all, he was a man who dared to challenge Kaido. Well. But after the fight, I discovered that Moria is just like that. You can say that he is excellent. He is also quite excellent. But if you compare him with yourself, compared with people like Beckman and Mihawk, it's not even a little bit worse. It's not an exaggeration to say that he is the bottom of this group of pirates at the same time. I don't know how he fought with Kaido for 3 days and 3 nights. As he said that, Orgrim was stunned after a moment. He asked, by the way, where is Mihawk? Where did that guy go? Why do I feel like I haven't seen him in a long time? Listening to Orgrim's inquiry, Beckman was also stunned for a moment, and looked at Neiman with some confusion. Neiman also thought for a while, shook his head and said, I don't know, I really feel like I haven't seen him for some days. Did that bastard just go out to sea to practice without even saying hello? Orgrim said in surprise. Then, he cursed bitterly. This bastard, is he still a human being? Boss Shiji was very kind to him, right? Now that Boss Shiji is in jail, he doesn't want to make progress and doesn't even come to the meeting. What is he going to do? Rebellion. This is unfaithful, unfilial, unkind, and unjust. Before Orgrim finished speaking, Sphinx suddenly asked, has someone informed Mihawk to come to the meeting? As soon as he finished speaking, Orgrim suddenly froze, his expression a little embarrassed. He convened this meeting, so naturally he was responsible for calling people, but it seems, have you forgotten Mihawk? Ahem, what then, didn't you notify him? Orgrim coughed in embarrassment and asked. Beckman rolled his eyes and said, weren't you the one who came to inform us? This is not, Orgrim muttered helplessly. Speaking of which, Mihawk has indeed become a little transparent in recent times. After all, this guy has nothing else in mind except swordsmanship. He is not interested in many things, and he has no intention of participating in Avalon's strategy. In addition, everyone is very busy, and that bastard is very aloof and prefers quietness, so it is inexplicable, there is no sense of presence. So much so that if I hadn't seen Moria's bounty today, thought about it, and remembered that it was Mihawk who went with him to kill Moria, Orgrim would have really forgotten about him. I remember, this morning, I saw Mr. Mihawk went to the back mountain. Enel suddenly spoke and said. Back mountain? This guy is thinking about Kendo again, right? I just said this guy is really, Orgrim breathed a sigh of relief and said, it's good that he didn't run out to sea. No, he didn't even bring that black knife yet, Enelu said again. As soon as Enelu said this, everyone else started laughing. Mihawk, that bastard, almost had Hideoya as his wife, and he might sleep with her in his arms at night. This guy never leaves his body with a knife. You said he went to the back mountain without a knife. How is that possible? Ha 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 ha, you must have seen it wrong, right? Orgrim laughed. Yes, I have known Mihawk for several years, and I have never seen him without a knife, Beckman also said with a smile. Enelu became a little anxious and argued, really, Mr. Mihawk didn't bring a knife. I think he also carried a hoe. Ha 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 ha, is he going to change his career and become the world's greatest hoe? Sphinx laughed and joked. Just when Enelu thought he had seen it wrong, Gangplank suddenly opened the door and ran in a hurry. When he saw everyone, he was shocked. Laughing happily, but also a little confused. Are you still human? Didn't I hear that you got together today to discuss saving Boss Shiji? Mr. Chui has been eating because of this matter recently. You can't afford food or sleep, but you are laughing so happily here. Are you worthy of Mr. Shiji, who is eating steamed buns in Impelton? Are you worthy of Master Chui, who is heartbroken over this? I was just about to speak up for Mr. Chui. Feeling aggrieved, Gangplank suddenly discovered that Hammer himself seemed to be the happiest, smiling. What are you laughing at? Plank asked a little strangely. Ha 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 ha, Plank, by the way, you are from the intelligence department, so you should be well informed. Have you seen that guy Mihawk? Orgrim asked with a smile. Yes, I saw him. He was plowing the fields, Plank said very naturally. As soon as he finished speaking, the others were all confused. What? Are you really going to farm? Orgrim's expression changed and he cursed, is this guy still a human being? Everyone is working hard to develop the Warhammer pirates and rescue Boss Shiji from Imperialton. I don't like this bastard Mihawk. Forget about participating in these things, it would make sense if he went to practice and improve his strength, but he actually stopped doing business and went to plow the fields. What is he going to do? Gangplank was stunned for a moment, and then continued. No, Mihawk said that his sword skills have recently arrived. The new bottleneck required him to calm down and nourish his energy. If he restrained the sharp edge in his heart, he might be able to see a new realm. Therefore, he decided to farm the fields by himself, stay away from the hustle and bustle, and hone his sword skills. Oh, that's it, then it'll be fine. Although Orgrim was embarrassed in his heart, he pretended to be very calm and said. At this time, he also remembered that that bastard Mihawk did seem to have this kind of hobby. After all, he was originally on Krakena Island. It was deserted and the country was ruined, so no businessmen went there. When he lived there, he seemed to plow the fields, cook by himself, and even make wine by himself. Amazing, this guy has integrated spiritual practice into his life. Feeling embarrassed, Orgrim quickly changed the subject, looked at Gangplank and asked, by the way, why are you here in such a hurry? Do you have any important information? Gangplank then reacted, and then he said hurriedly, yes, something big happened. Master Chui, look. As he spoke, Gangplank handed a piece of information to Orgrim. Orgrim took it and looked down, his expression also shocked. What happens? Beckman asked curiously. Shishibukai sand crocodile, let's challenge Whitebeard? Orgrim looked at Beckman and said. Beckman was also startled. After all, this is the first major event since the establishment of the King's Shishibukai, right? The impact is far-reaching. But soon, Beckman's expression became overjoyed, and similarly, Orgrim also became happy. Opportunity, isn't this an opportunity? A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 225. This opportunity, of course, does not mean that Orgrim is going to get involved here, such as capturing Crocodile or something. Because this makes no sense, there is no complete version of the Shishibukai under the king, and Crocodile is the only Shishibukai under the king. Even if he failed to challenge Whitebeard, the world government would not be able to destroy his own brand and directly remove him. Therefore, even if Orgrim and the others captured Crocodile and sent him to the world government would probably not imprison him in Imperial. Maybe I'll find an opportunity to let him go or something. Even the Navy won't do anything to him. After all, in the Navy's view, the worse the King's Shishibukai is, the more beneficial it will be to the Navy. The opportunity Orgrim and Beckman saw was this time to conquer the Shishibukai and challenge Whitebeard's far-reaching influence. This matter will definitely attract the attention of many people on the sea in the coming period. In this way, Orgrim and the others will be much more low-key when they go to Impelton to cause trouble. Secondly, if the King Shishibukai causes trouble for the first time, will there be no movement from the Navy headquarters? Especially, this guy's target is Whitebeard. Speaking of Crocodile, this guy is also a strange flower in the sea. He has a great reputation. It can even be said that he is no less famous than Orgrim now. Well, even if it's bad, it's not too different. But the problem is, I don't know where he offended the Navy headquarters or the world government. In short, this bastard went to sea early enough. When Orgrim went to sea, he also went to sea, maybe a little earlier than Orgrim. Many of the things he has done have indeed had a good impact. But unfortunately, this guy's bounty is as good as dead. He just can't raise it. Even if he has now become the king of the Shishibukai, the final bounty will be fixed at more than 80 million belly. Not even 100 million belly. How fucking miserable is this? But although Crocodile's bounty was ridiculously low, his strength was recognized by many people. The reason is because this guy Crocodile is now like cheating. In the world of pirates, he deserves to be called Crocodile 50-50, and he can fight anyone. The successor of the Ghost, that is, the descendant of the devil, Douglas Barrett, is famous enough, right? A member of the Roger Pirates, and there are rumors that Douglas Barrett is as powerful as One Piece's right arm, Hades Shilbaz Rayleigh. Of course, Orgrim was skeptical about whether Douglas Barrett could compete with Riley. But no matter what, this guy is indeed powerful enough, and he is a figure that Orgrim has to pay attention to. However, from before Douglas Barrett joined the Roger Pirates to after he left the Roger Pirates, Crocodile met him many times on the sea, and the two fought several times. In the end, there is no winner or loser. I just gave it a 50-50 score. Therefore, Crocodile's strength has always been a mystery in the sea. Let's say he is strong. He has a bounty of over 80 million yuan. Even the name of a great pirate is somewhat unworthy, and Hank is even better than him. Let's just say he's not strong. Judging from the side, he might even be as strong as Rayleigh. What the hell? Later, in Rog Town, Crocodile had a fight with Garp, but in the end there was no winner, but at that time, at least for a short period of time, he did not fall into a disadvantage. Then, there was chaos in Rog Town, and this guy even escaped from the hands of a group of Navy bosses. At this point, his reputation became more prosperous, and he became the chief of Shishibukai under the king. So don't look at this guy Crocodile being pressed to the ground and rubbed by Orgrim from various other levels such as bounty money. But many people in the sea are convinced of his strength. Even the world government and the Navy headquarters probably recognized it, otherwise he would not have become the first king of the Shishibukai. From this point of view, although the fact that Crocodile, a pirate, went to challenge Whitebeard 50-50 seems a bit child's play, in fact, the current opinions of all the people on the sea are very unified. I think Crocodile is qualified to challenge Whitebeard. Being qualified to challenge means that this matter deserves attention. The first real debut of King Shishibukai. Orgrim didn't believe that there would be no movement at all from the Navy headquarters. Therefore, after passing the information in his hand to Beckman, Orgrim quickly looked at Plank and asked Plank, "Is there any movement at the Navy headquarters?" Plank was stunned for a moment and thought. After thinking for a while, he said, "Speaking of which, there is some news over there. Yesterday, it seemed that an Admiral-class warship left Marineford. The warships of the Navy headquarters are also divided into grades. The general's car is naturally larger and more domineering. However, this matter was nothing conspicuous in normal times, and Gangplank did not pay attention to it. After all, it was normal for the general to leave Marineford. Maybe he went to the Holy Land to report to Mary Joa? But this matter, looking at it from this place, is very debatable. The King's Shishibukai is more or less nominally affiliated with the world government, so if Crocodile wants to challenge Whitebeard, he must be confident in his own strength. With his arrogant character, before starting, he should notify the world government in advance and tell them that he is going to do something big, and you can just shout 666. It's not impossible. Therefore, it is very likely that the Navy headquarters received the news in advance and went to the New World to observe the situation. This thing is not only possible, but extremely likely. In fact, just as Orgrim guessed, after receiving the information from Crocodile, the Warring States General immediately chose to go to the New World in person to observe the situation. Although the world today has become very chaotic due to the arrival of the Great Pirate Era. But the Navy is not too busy to take care of its hands and feet, and the Warring States Generals still have some leisure time. After all, if those new pirates want to succeed in the sea, they must first pass 5 levels, kill 6 generals, and break into a new world. The navies in the first half of the Grand Line are enough for the time being. Therefore, the general of the Warring States period thought about this matter: I have nothing to do, I have to go and take a look. Crocodile's challenge to Whitebeard, no matter what, would be of great benefit to the Navy. He won, well, although the Warring States General thought Crocodile was a figure, to be honest, he really didn't think Crocodile could win. Let's not mention it for now. Let's just say that both sides will suffer losses. If Crocodile can fight Whitebeard to a point where both sides suffer losses, the Navy will have the opportunity to take advantage. The originally chaotic New World will become even more chaotic. Are these pirates crazy? Not allowed to knock the brains out of your opponent? It would be good for the Navy to lose both sides. If Crocodile loses, the Navy will not suffer, which just goes to show that the Shishibukai under the king is just that. World government, the one you should rely on is our maritime overlord, the Navy headquarters. Why don't you quickly release this year's military expenditure? Secondly, it would be best for Crocodile to be crippled by Whitebeard and become a useless person. Not only will their naval headquarters not deprive Crocodile of his title of King Shishibukai, they will also enshrine him as a mascot. Wangxia Shishibukai is completely ruined. All in all, no matter what Crocodile does this time, the Navy will not suffer. Therefore, the Warring States General decided to go and see the excitement, so that he could receive the news as soon as possible and make some arrangements for the Navy at the same time. It's unmistakable. Although I don't know which general was dispatched, there is no doubt that this incident cannot be a coincidence. He must have come to the New World, Beckman spoke quickly. The rest of the people were a little confused. What happened to the Navy general in the New World? It's not like you've never been here before, why are you two so excited? Second brother, what does this mean? Neiman asked curiously. Does Trinity Impelton understand? Now that a general from the Navy headquarters has left, it is a good opportunity for us. This proves that even if we get into any trouble in Impelton, the Navy headquarters can only support one general at most. Beckman said excitedly. Only then did the others react. Yes, according to the Trinity theory of the 3 fortresses of justice just now, the power of the Navy headquarters is the power of Impelton. Now a general of the Navy headquarters is running away. Coming to the New World, when they go to Impelton, they will have one less general as their opponent. No one in the sea can defeat 2 generals from the Navy headquarters at the same time, not even Whitebeard. But if there is only one, then the concept is completely different. Now, Orgrim has the confidence to fight with them. At this point, Orgrim was stunned again and asked Glank, Garp. Garp. Is that guy in the South China Sea? Plank was surprised by Orgrim's move. Being a little confused, he quickly said yes, there is information that Garp is responsible for supervising the hunt for the blood of Pirate King Roger in the South China Sea. I heard that he also found a beautiful woman there. The second spring has begun. What? Orgrim was stunned for a moment, but he quickly realized, oh, he should be talking about Portcas de Liu, right? Just thinking about it, this old bastard lived directly in the girl's house, and later the girl gave birth to a child. Do you think it can be cleaned up? There is no guarantee for the late festival. Thief shouts catch the thief, but that bastard is still supervising Roger's bloodline, bah, Orgrim cursed first. Then he said helplessly, Roger is miserable too. Everyone is dead, and Garp is still playing the widow trick. As his good friend, I will definitely vent his anger on him in the future and take care of Garp. What nonsense are you talking about? Beckman complained helplessly. Orgrim cheered up and said, what a good opportunity, what a good opportunity. There is a high probability that a general in the Navy will come to the New World. That old bastard Garp, and in the South China Sea. In this way, the naval headquarters can only have the support of one general, and the rest can only be some general candidates. Isn't this the best time for us to attack Imperialton? When everyone heard this, they were like, yes. Damn it, there is one less general and one less hero Garp, and the difficulty of conquering Imperial has plummeted. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 226. In the first half of the Grand Line, on the Queen of Spring Island, Doflamingo, the young master, was resting on the island. It had been a while since Roger lay down, and many things in Roger Town had been found out. The Navy also found out the secret behind the collusion between Doflamingo and Kazgaro's Orgrim to cause trouble in Rogtown. In addition, Doflamingo also has the idea of making a name for himself along the Grand Line, so naturally he will do all kinds of evil wherever he goes. His hands are stained with blood and he is full of evil deeds. Therefore, as of today, Doflamingo's bounty is as high as 120 million belly. But he was not too excited, even though he was already a big pirate in name. But when I think about it, 120 million Baileys is not even qualified to carry the hammer for Mr. Hammer. This is very hard. So proud Doflamingo is not proud this time. On the Queen of Spring Island, Doflamingo is sitting on the coast, holding a phone bug in his hand, as if he is communicating with someone. Yeah? Have you become Commodore of the Navy headquarters? Yes, this is considered to be the level of a naval admiral. Fergo, I attach great importance to you and have a lot of expectations for you. I hope you can continue your efforts. I will arrange for people from the world government to provide you with corresponding of help, Doflamingo said softly. Yes, he is in contact with this guy Fergo. Long before he changed his career to become a pirate, Doflamingo wanted to open up more connections in the Navy and obtain more intelligence and corresponding benefits. He sent Fergo, the top leader of the Red Heart Army under the Don Quixote family, to the Navy as an undercover agent. This guy Fergo is probably Doflamingo's best cotter, and he's also the one who can fight best. Although he doesn't have any devil fruit abilities, he seems to be very talented in armed color hacking. After joining the Navy, his talents quickly became apparent. He was friendly, gentle, and seemed to be a gentleman. In addition, Doflamingo still has some influence in the world government, which subtly allowed Fergo to rise to prominence. Now, Fergo has become a Commodore of the Navy headquarters. There is no obstacle to his advancement. As long as his strength and achievements can keep up, it is estimated that he will be able to become a Rear Admiral of the Navy headquarters in a short time. Even if he was given more time, it would not be impossible to become a Lieutenant General at the Navy headquarters. Of course, that's the end of it. The average person who can reach the position of Vice Admiral of the Navy headquarters is already very capable. Do you want to be a candidate for a general, or even become a general or something, that can't be covered by strength or merit? It also depends on the timing and the players in the same batch. There is no doubt that if Fergo is regarded as one of the same batch of players with Jun, Kuzan, Sakaski, Porisalino, and others, then he has no hope at all, and it is impossible for him to become an admiral candidate or general in the Navy. Therefore, Doflamingo's biggest expectation is that he can become a Vice Admiral of the Navy. This is enough. Young master, speaking of which, there is an opportunity recently and I want to give it a try, Virgo said softly. Doflamingo raised his eyebrows slightly on the phone bug's side, and then laughed. Phew 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 phew, there are not many opportunities to be attracted by you. Let me tell you, Doflamingo asked with a chuckle. Recently, the Navy headquarters seems to be trying to break some ground in the New World, Virgo responded. Doflamingo frowned slightly and asked, what do you mean? Although the era of great pirates has arrived, in any case, the New World is missing Roger and Shiji. The Navy does have a certain amount of power and can extend into the New World, but the Warring States General seems to want to find another seek a way out, Virgo explains. Make it clear, Doflamingo asked with some seriousness in his mind. New World, the Navy is going to have arrangements in the New World? He will soon enter the New World, and there, he will have to cooperate with Orgrim. It's his thigh. If you can grasp the new trends of the Navy firsthand, this will be a good opportunity to get closer to Orgrim. The Navy headquarters intends to form a pirate guerrilla force. There is also the establishment of a brand new G-5 naval base, Virgo said. Doflamingo still didn't understand. Before he could speak, Virgo continued, however, the matter of the pirate guerrillas is quite controversial. It seems that there is no direction to be discussed for the time being, but G-5 naval base, the plan has already passed the strategy meeting of the Navy headquarters. Pirate guerrillas, this proposal is to form a group of elite Navy, without supplies, to wreak havoc in the New World, kill thieves to support themselves, and change places with one shot. But this matter is indeed very controversial. After all, there is no precedent. After that, he had to wait until Sci-fi retired. More than 10 years later, he led his students to form such a team. Of course, this team did not exist for long. Sci-fi became extreme due to many things, and finally died at the hands of his students and died in the New World. The pirate guerrillas also came to an end, and in the end they failed to make any splash. But the G-5 Navy is different. It can be said to be the predecessor of the pirate guerrilla, or a tentative arrangement. Under the leadership of the Navy headquarters, a brand new naval base was established in the New World to sweep all kinds of problem children in the Navy into this trash can. Then the G-5 Navy is not entitled to military pay and has extremely high autonomy. If they want to make a fortune, they will rob pirates and fight against New World pirates. Although this approach is somewhat disgraceful, it has to be said that for a long time, the Navy's influence in the New World was reflected by the G-5 Navy. They just turned a group of righteous Marines into a group of evil Marines that are more cruel than most pirates. The G-5 Navy was notorious in the New World. It was not until later, when Sakazuki became the Admiral of the Navy and moved the Navy headquarters to the New World, that the G-5 Navy gradually declined. At that time, Virgo was the base commander of the G-5 Navy. Doflamingo listened to Virgo's introduction and finally figured out what was going on with the G-5 Navy. He said with some surprise, I can't tell that the Warring States period still has such courage. Although it seems very dishonorable and even insulting to justice, the New World is such a chaotic place. Perhaps only this kind of navy can survive in the New World. Make a name for yourself here. Yes, young master, I value this too. Considering that you are also about to enter the New World and the layout of our Don Quixote family, I think I should join the G-5 Navy, so, can provide you with more convenience in the New World, Virgo said softly. Doflamingo also fell silent after hearing this. What Virgo said made sense. Although Doflamingo originally intended for Virgo to gain some benefits and information in the headquarters, but thinking about it carefully, the competition pressure in the headquarters is too great. There are a group of monsters there, and Virgo doesn't even know he is coming if he wants to get ahead. When is it? But if you go to G-5, that's not necessarily the case. Furthermore, Doflamingo also has deep connections in the world government, and his need for information from the Navy headquarters is not particularly urgent. So after thinking for a while, Doflamingo smiled and said, since you have your own arrangements, then go ahead and do it, Virgo. Thank you, Master, for your understanding, Virgo said softly. It's okay, you are my most important family member, Virgo, Doflamingo smiled. In fact, this is not a lie. Doflamingo really values Virgo very much and regards him as his family. After a short pause, Doflamingo returned to the topic. Virgo, how's the arrangement going for you? Doflamingo asked. Young master, I am preparing to report this matter this time. There has been great progress. I secretly contacted M. Caesar Currant. He is very interested in joining us. After some arrangements by us, he fired from the Navy's Scientific Corps, Virgo smiled and said. Doflamingo's eyes lit up, and then he asked, then what? Are you free again? Not at all. Virgo said softly. Doflamingo sighed a little, but he thought it was normal. In any case, this bastard Caesar is also a first-rate talent in the scientific world. The world government cannot restore his freedom casually. He has been sentenced to some crimes and is going to be transported to Impelton to serve his sentence. I have already inquired about his itinerary. In 1 month, he will be escorted to Impelton from the never-existing island Punkhasad. The route is, Virgo reported to Doflamingo. Doflamingo soon smiled. Although the world government did not restore Caesar's freedom, knowing the itinerary of the escort ship was already known, wouldn't it be half the battle? They just robbed Caesar, wouldn't that be the end of it? Very good, you can stop this matter now. From now on, be your navy and wait for my contact, Doflamingo arranged. Yes, young master, Virgo said with a smile. The two quickly hung up the phone, and then Doflamingo was excited to go and tell Orgrim the good news. Lord Hammer, this is a golden thigh, okay. It's easy to seize the opportunity. Finally, things here have made progress. Why don't you take some credit? Not long after, Doflamingo's phone bug was connected. I just heard a hearty smile coming from the other side. Voice. Gee ha 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 ha, young master, we haven't contacted you for so long. You haven't entered the new world yet? Are you lost? Do you need me to send someone to pick you up? Orgrim laughed over the phone bug. Phew 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 phew, Mr. Zui, you have troubled yourself. The reason why I didn't enter the new world is because the things you asked me to do, Mr. Zui, haven't been completed yet, right? So, how can I have the nerve to go to the new world to see you? Doflamingo said with a smile. Oh? So it seems there is good news today? Orgrim asked. Of course, I have already heard about Caesar. He will be escorted to Impelton in a month. I plan to, Doflamingo said with a smile. As a result, before he finished speaking, Orgrim asked in surprise, escorted to Impelton? 1 month later. Yes, that's right, I'm going to hijack the ship. Doflamingo was stunned for a moment and said. Gee ha 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 ha, God help me. Don't hijack the ship, this will be of great benefit to us. Let's go to the first half of the Grand Line now, see you at the Chambord Islands. Orgrim laughed loudly, and then hung up the phone bug. Doflamingo looked at the phone bug in his hand in confusion, always feeling that something bad was going to cover his head. On. It feels like something big is going to happen. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 227. Chambord Islands, in Siachi's Rip-Off Tavern. There was not much business today, so he casually sent away a group of new pirates, and after blackmailing them, Siachi closed the tavern. At this time, she was wiping the wine glass leisurely and looking at the newly acquired information. The little guy Sand Crocodile is going to challenge Whitebeard. Counting the time, more than half a month has passed. He should have reached Whitebeard's territory, right? Siachi murmured after putting down the wine glass in her hand. Just when she was thinking about these questions, the door of the tavern was pushed open. Then she saw a sloppy uncle holding a toolbox came in smelling of alcohol. Yes, this guy was none other than the famous Hades Shilbaz Rayleigh. As soon as he saw that bastard Rayleigh smelling of alcohol, Shaky cursed angrily, "Rayleigh, look at you. You drink and drink all day long. I told you to learn a trade. What did you do? Are you planning to be my white face in the future?" As soon as Xiaoqi showed his power, Rayleigh, the famous Pluto, didn't dare to resist at all. He hung his head in fear and said helplessly, "I just took a few sips on the way back. I really went to learn the craft, coding. I coded a boat today." "Coded a boat? You didn't kill anyone in the sea, did you?" Xiaoqi frowned and asked with some suspicion. "What you are saying is that I am also the king of Pluto. What could possibly go wrong with the coding I applied myself? Even if they die in the sea, it's their bad luck. What kind of shipwreck they encounter has nothing to do with my coding," Rayleigh said confidently. "As for his craftsmanship, let's not mention it. After all, he has just learned it. If he can code people well and let people go into the sea, it will be good. As for whether he will die or not, it depends on fate." Of course, after more than 10 years of training, Lila's coding technology is still very advanced. But this is a technical job after all, and the most important thing for this kind of technical job is experience. Rayleigh was a pirate after all, and he didn't care at all about those pirates who were so excited that they thought they had picked up a cheap coater. He loved them to death. Although Xiaoqi looked at Rayleigh suspiciously, he didn't say anything in the end. It was already good for Rayleigh to find a job, make money by himself, and subsidize their family income. As for whether those people died or not, Xiaoqi didn't care. She wasn't a good person anyway. "That's pretty much it, but I'm worried that you're not doing your job properly and you've stopped being a pirate. You've already washed your hands in a golden basin, so you still have to leave yourself some way to survive. Don't you feel embarrassed that you rely on me for food every day? Orgrim said at the beginning that you have the potential to become a gay man. I still didn't believe it. Now, forget it, you have changed after all." Xiaoqi said with some relief. Seeing that Xiaoqi had calmed down, Rayleigh also smiled happily and said, "Don't worry, who am I, Rayleigh? How come you are such a white-faced person?" Xiaoqi nodded with satisfaction, then stretched out his hand and said, "In that case, give me the wages for the coding." "Ah," Rayleigh looked at Xiaoqi in confusion. "Ah, for what? You've been eating and drinking here for free for so long, and you finally made some money, so why don't you give it to me?" Xiaoqi glared angrily. Rayleigh's chest that had just been puffed up deflated, and he smiled awkwardly, not embarrassed to speak. "What to do?" Xiaoqi asked with a frown. "This is not, on the road, bought wine, what?" Rayleigh felt a little guilty and said intermittently. Buying wine, Xiaoqi's heart broke when she heard this. Then, without saying a word, she smashed an empty wine bottle on Rayleigh, and then cursed angrily, "I am a wine seller, you old bastard, why are you still here? Buying a drink outside? You make a little money and it goes away, right? It's the first time I make money with my own skills, and I don't know how to buy me some gifts, The more Xiaoqi talked, the angrier he became, and the more he looked at Rayleigh, the more displeased he became. How could he be so blind that he fell in love with this loser? In a rage, Xiaoqi picked up another wine bottle from the table and walked out of the bar. Rayleigh was startled. Just as he was about to turn around and run away, Xiaoqi grabbed the collar of the back of his neck. Then Xiaoqi exerted force in his hand and pressed Rayleigh's head on the bar. "If I don't help you improve your memory today, you will," Xiaoqi cursed angrily, and then hit Rayleigh on the head with a wine bottle. Of course, Xiaoqi still had some discretion in his actions, and Rayleigh was an experienced and tough-minded person. When the bottle went down, the wine spilled all over the table. Rayleigh even stuck out his tongue and licked the wine stains around his mouth. At the same time, the door of the tavern was suddenly pushed open. "Gee ha 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 ha, Sister Xiaoqi, Lei, I'm here to see you," Orgrim laughed and opened the door and walked in. When he looked inside the room, everyone was shocked. Damn it, Hades Shilbaz Rayleigh, the right wrist of the Pirate King, was pinned down on the bar and shot in the head with a bottle? Is this passed down from generation to generation? Isn't this how Shanks was raped by the Bandit King? Seeing that the atmosphere was a bit awkward, Orgrim forced a smile and said quickly, "I think you two are busy with something, so I'll go to the island for a walk first, and I'll be my guest again in the evening." As soon as he finished speaking, Orgrim turned around and was about to go out, while Rayleigh panicked. "Damn it, you stubborn bitch. Now that you're gone, am I still alive?" Etc., etc. "Orgrim, I hit it off with you. I haven't thanked you enough for Roger's matter." "Come in and talk," Riley exclaimed, then struggled twice. Xiaoqi was also embarrassed to embarrass Riley in front of outsiders. After all, she was very measured, so she quickly let go of her hand and said, "I misunderstood." "Misunderstanding, Orgrim, are you experimenting with the strength of this wine bottle?" That's right, don't get me wrong, I am the king of Hades," Rayleigh also quickly explained. Orgrim would be stupid to believe such nonsense, but in the world of martial arts, of course one has to be tactful, so Orgrim pretended to be suddenly enlightened and said, "I see, that's what I'm saying, you two, how could such a loving person lead to such a thing as domestic violence? What's more, Senior Pluto is my idol." With that said, Orgrim walked in, and the officers of the Warhammer pirates who were blocked by him also walked in together. Riley took a tablecloth from the table and didn't care so much. He was used to being sloppy anyway, so he just wiped it on his face randomly and wiped off the wine. "It's strange, there are so many big events in the New World, how come you, Orgrim, still have the time to come to the Shampoo Islands? How? Can't survive in the New World? Didn't I hear that you captured Avalon?" Riley smiled and sat on the chair and asked. Xiaoqi took out a bunch of wine glasses very naturally and placed them in front of Beckman, Mihawk, and others. Without waiting for the seamen, the senior thief woman poured them drinks, and Neiman took over these tasks very sensibly. There is a big shit event in the New World. Besides, no matter how much fun they have, what does it have to do with me, Orgrim? Who dares to come to Avalon to cause trouble for me? Orgrim said with a smile. "Ha ha ha ha, that guy from Sand Crocodile challenges Newgate. Isn't this a big deal? Charlotte Lingling's encroachment on Shiji's original territory has nothing to do with you." "You guy," Riley said with a smile. Although Orgrim made a big fuss in Roger Town, and it could even be said that he killed Roger with his own hands, Rayleigh had no intention of blaming Orgrim. On the contrary, although Orgrim and them were once rivals, in the end, they gave Roger a decent death. This was a sign that he was respecting his opponents and himself. Of course Rayleigh would appreciate it and respect Orgrim. Having said that, it would definitely be embarrassing to mention Roger's death, so the two of them had a tacit understanding and no one mentioned anything about Roger Town. Alas, if Crocodile can get rid of Whitebeard, then this new world will be too simple. It's not that I look down on him. No one in this world can offend that Whitebeard guy for the time being. Even if there is someone in the future, it should be me. Orgrim, he Crocodile is not worthy yet, just wait and see, it is nothing more than a farce," Orgrim waved his hand and said. After a slight pause, he added, "As for Boss Shiji's territory, to be honest, I have no interest at all. It's a mess. Charlotte Lingling can eat it if she wants. That damn old woman has a big appetite and is not afraid of being stuffed to death. After all, you haven't paid attention to the key points. How come you have the time to come here? Aren't you afraid that the Navy headquarters will come to trouble you, Riley asked with a smile. Although he didn't have much contact with Orgrim, and he didn't even leave a signal from the phone bug. But just like what Roger said at the beginning, Orgrim seemed to be with them. These old guys from the Roger Pirates get along very well. Come on, people like this. As for the Navy, with you Pluto here, what should I be afraid of? Orgrim didn't shy away from anything and said directly. Waiting for someone, Riley turned his head and looked at Mihawk, who had just picked up the wine glass. Last time Orgrim was waiting for Mihawk here, and then they went directly to Rogtown to make a big mess. Who is Orgrim waiting for this time? Is there another big move? Could it be that this guy wants to imitate Shiji and attack Marineford? Who are you waiting for? I always feel that you have bad intentions, Riley asked with a smile. Orgrim still didn't hide anything and said directly, Doflamingo, I made an appointment with him to meet here. Tyenyaksha. What about that newcomer who is quite famous at sea recently? Is he joining you? Or are you going to do something big together? Xiaoqi asked curiously after hearing this. Gee ha 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 ha, the eldest sister can see it clearly, so it doesn't count as joining. That guy and I have a connection in Bihai, and we get along quite well. We are going to work together to do some business. It's not easy to be a pirate these days. As for this times, when Orgrim said this, he paused for a moment. Then, he shook his head and said with some sadness, well, I, Orgrim, value love and righteousness. Boss Shiji, I have been very kind to our 3 brothers and sisters, and even taught me all my skills. Now he has suffered, he was in trouble and was trapped in that hellish place in Impelton. How could I bear to see him suffer? So I made a plan and planned to go to Impelton to rob the prison this time. The drink that Rayleigh just drank into his mouth spurted out. What? Are you going to jail? Riley asked in surprise. What's all the fuss about? The kindness of a drop of water is repaid by a spring of water. Even if I, Orgrim, die, I can't live up to the kindness that Boss Shiji has shown me, Orgrim said with an expression of why are you surprised? Isn't this natural? Riley looked at Orgrim with some suspicion, but didn't find anything wrong. After thinking about it again, Orgrim's actions in the past were indeed worthy of the words emphasis on love and justice. In the end, Rayleigh shook his head with emotion and said, Shiji is really a man of virtue. To be honest, I'm a little envious of having such a loyal and courageous disciple like you. A Sledgehammer Breaks into Pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 228. Doflamingo set foot on the Chambord Islands after a long absence. He had childhood memories of this island. When he was a child, this place was just like his back garden. He often came back here to play and show his dominance. Wherever he went, a group of people would kneel down to welcome him. At that time, he felt that he was the king of this world and an extremely noble celestial dragon. But now, it's really shameful to think about it. In his eyes, the celestial dragons who used to be so aloof are just a group of ignorant fools who are immersed in the glory of their ancestors and can't see the changes of the times. It's been many years since I've been to the Shampoo Islands. Doflamingo feels that there hasn't been much change here, it's still the same. But this island is a good place to make money. Let's see if we can start a business here in the future, Doflamingo smacked his lips and said. Then, he took out a piece of paper from his pocket, which recorded the meeting place agreed upon when he contacted Orgrim. Shakey's Rip-Off Tavern, didn't listen live it, Doflamingo murmured. Then he turned to look at Diamandi and the others, and said, just wait for me at the port. I'll go see Orgrim. After Doflamingo finished his instructions, he walked up to Shampoo alone. Islands. Although he had made an appointment with Orgrim to meet here, he had no idea what Orgrim was going to do. I was also very confused in my heart, but there was always some bad premonition. After wandering around the island for a while, Doflamingo came to Shakey's Rip-Off Tavern. From a distance, This tavern is alone on a hill with no buildings around it. It looks very simple, but the name makes Doflamingo feel a little strange. He had already seen an acquaintance, Lakeless Hank, who had been following Orgrim to make his fortune since the North Sea. The bounty is 136 million baileys, which is 16 million higher than the young master himself. But this guy was carrying a sledgehammer and standing at the door of the tavern, like a doorman, driving away some pirates who wanted to go in and drink. Doflamingo smiled and walked over with his arrogant steps. After Hank saw Doflamingo, his eyes lit up, he smiled and said, "Hello Sir Doflamingo, Master Hammer is waiting for you inside." "Sir, I can't stand it." "Hank, we have known each other for a long time. There is no need to be so polite. When it comes to pirates, you are my senior," Doflamingo said with a smile. As the saying goes, the 7th grade official in front of the Prime Minister's door, although Doflamingo has never heard of the saying, he still understands the truth behind it. Lakeless Hank must be someone who is deeply trusted by Orgrim. If you have nothing to do, it's best not to put on airs in front of him. Otherwise, if Hank talks too much, it may affect his image in the eyes of Mr. Hammer. As a person, especially a businessman like yourself, you must be tactful and don't offend anyone. Hank smiled honestly. He also had a good impression of Doflamingo. He took good care of them when they were in Bihai. If nothing else, the party was very exciting. The two chatted casually for a few words, and Doflamingo opened the door and walked in. He thought this was just an ordinary tavern, and Orgrim was drinking inside, waiting for him to come and discuss things. As soon as he opened the door, he felt that the atmosphere inside was very lively. The first thing he saw was the proprietress Xiaoqi, who was bartending at the bar. When he saw Xiaoqi, he felt familiar, but he couldn't recognize who this person was. If he thought about it carefully, he might be able to remember that many years ago, Xiaoqi was also a female pirate who dominated the sea. However, he didn't think of it. Instead, he saw Niemann, Orgrim's sister, whom he had only seen in the bounty but had never interacted with before. She was learning bartending with Shaky. That strong muscles, tall body, strong momentum, and, there are some cute faces that all make Doflamingo feel weird. Especially when he saw Niemann accidentally crushing a wine glass, Doflamingo realized deeply that he couldn't afford to offend this person. Dove sauce, Xiaoqi looked at Doflamingo's figure with some curiosity, and said with a smile. Doflamingo was stunned for a moment. "What's the word Jiangbijiang? Am I familiar with you? You don't know anyone. You know where this little guy came from. He just made a good bartending, and you dare to call me that?" But thinking that this was the tavern chosen by Mr. Chui, he naturally nodded to Xiaoqi, but did not reply. "Chi, it was fast, it was only a moment from the moment he entered the door." Doflamingo turned his head and looked into the room, and saw Orgrim and some other cotters of the Warhammer pirates drinking. And Orgrim was chatting with a somewhat slovenly handsome man. Just one glance made Doflamingo stunned. "Damn it, isn't this person Rayleigh? Hades Shilbaz, Rayleigh. The right arm of the Pirate King? Why is he here? Has he joined the Warhammer pirates?" His heart suddenly became confused, and then he heard Orgrim laughing. "Gee ha 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 ha, young master, you are finally here. I have been waiting for you for a long time. Come on, let me introduce you. This is the famous Rayleigh. He and his wife opened a tavern here. Most people don't know, and I won't tell you. If you come to the Chambord Islands in the future, you have to take care of their business," Orgrim laughed and said to Doflamingo. Doflamingo was stunned for a moment. The tavern opened by Rayleigh and his wife. In other words, the woman who just called me Dover-chan is Rayleigh's wife. After coming back to his senses, Doflamingo also smiled and said, "Sure enough, Mr. Hammer, you are so powerful. Can you even find a legendary pirate like Rayleigh Senpai?" Although he said this, but Doflamingo was thinking back to that moment, as if he had done nothing rude. Well, fortunately, I am smooth enough. Although I can't remember where I have met the female boss, but will the person who can be Rayleigh's wife be a simple tavern owner? Definitely not, even if it was. Doflamingo felt that he couldn't offend him. Doflamingo was a very good person, and he blended into the drinking party with a smile. He held a wine glass and had a drink with Rayleigh. Then, he grabbed Rayleigh and gave him a blow, as if he admired him very much. Same as Raleigh. In the past, Rayleigh would have looked down upon such a flattering guy. What is my identity that you need to brag about? Even if you don't brag, I am also the famous Pluto Rayleigh. But now it's different. Rayleigh has been clearly arranged by Xiaoqi all day long in this tavern, and he always feels like he can't hold his head up. Now that someone was holding him and blowing hard, Rayleigh felt that he had regained his former all-powerful feeling. At the same time, he still glanced at Xiaoqi from time to time, as if to show off, "Look, how famous I am. You should respect me more from now on." But unfortunately, Xiaoqi didn't care about him at all, and was just chatting with Neiman. After everyone boasted for a while, Doflamingo asked with a smile, "Master Hammer, I am preparing to kidnap Caesar. Why do you suddenly ask me to stop arrangements?" After listening to Doflamingo's words, Orgrim drank the drink in his hand first, and then said, "Of course, Dove, don't be so violent, I'm going to make a surprise attack on this ship." Then, Orgrim spoke to Doflamingo. While listening, Doflamingo looked at Katerina Deppen, who was sitting aside, and then asked with some surprise, "Then what? What are you doing to replace the prison ship?" At this point, Doflamingo brother Ming was suddenly stunned for a moment, and then exclaimed, "Master Chui, are you trying to cause trouble in Imperial? Gee, ha 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 ha, have you discovered all this?" Orgrim laughed. Doflamingo broke into a cold sweat. "I knew for sure that this was definitely not good. Where is Imperial on? The place where pirates died, 800, it's been years and I haven't heard of anything happening there. Isn't Orgrim too brave? Alas, actually I don't want to, but you also know that I, Orgrim, value love and righteousness. Now I, the Warhammer pirates, are enjoying life on the sea, but my boss Shiji is suffering in Imperial. Suffering, every time I think about this, my heart aches uncontrollably. I, Orgrim, have been deeply favored by boss Shiji, how can I just sit idly by and watch? So I decided to go prison." Orgrim patted the table and said. Doflamingo was shocked. Although he had not met Orgrim many times, Doflamingo knew very well who Orgrim was. It's not that he doesn't value love and justice, but this guy values interests more. He had known for a long time that Shiji was going to cause trouble, but he had no intention of stopping him at all. He just let Shiji go to Marineford and cause a scene, and Shiji was finally caught. It seems that Orgrim got some benefits from it that he didn't know about. Now Orgrim is crying and shouting to save Shiji. Is there something wrong with this? If there was nothing related to Orgrim's vital interests, Doflamingo wouldn't believe it even to death. Doflamingo was still confused, and Orgrim put his arm around Doflamingo's shoulders and said, "I'm definitely going to Impelton. Think about it, this is a big event that has never happened in 800 years. Dover, you also said last time that you wanted to become the king of the Shishibukai. There must be a lack of reputation here. The relationship between the two of us is so good. How can I forget about you when it comes to earning fame? So this time, I am going to take you with me to rob Impelton prison. Don't worry, if we do this together, your bounty will be doubled." Doflamingo forced a smile and told Orgrim, "I'm not in a hurry, I'll just take my time. I won't go to Impelton, right?" But he was too embarrassed to speak. Just when he made up his mind to talk to Orgrim about it, Orgrim laughed and continued, okay, I have arranged this matter, you just need to follow me to eat and drink." Don't worry, with our relationship, I won't trick anyone. I won't trick you. If you don't go, you are looking down on me, Orgrim. Doflamingo twitched his face, and finally gritted his teeth and said, "Thank you, Mr. Hammer, for thinking of me for such a good thing." "You're welcome, as I said, we are good friends." Orgrim laughed. "You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." A Sledgehammer Breaks into Pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 229. Near the Gate of Justice, a warship is moored here. At the same time, Orgrim's huge deep-sea overlord, the Black Narwhal, is parked next to the warship. At this time, on the warship, Orgrim casually threw the corpse of a marine into the sea, then turned around and asked, "Is it okay? Signal or something?" "Don't worry, Master Chewie, my birdcage can isolate the phone bug signal wave," Doflamingo smiled confidently. This birdcage is a move that Doflamingo developed not long ago, and its coverage area is not as powerful as it was able to cover the island later. But it's enough to deal with a warship. The magical thing about this birdcage is that if it is locked in it, the signal wave of the phone bug cannot be transmitted out. In the future, Doflamingo would use this trick in Dressrosa to kill and silence everyone inside. If the phone bug signal can be transmitted, then what's the point of killing it? It was for this reason that Orgrim thought of bringing Doflamingo with him, and this guy did not disappoint him. It's just a pity that Doflamingo is not very skilled in this aspect. If he can cover the entire Impelton, there is no need to worry about Marine Headquarters Marineford being able to support him. While Orgrim was talking to Doflamingo, Rengar took the bastard Caesar out of the prison in the cabin. "Mr. Hammer, this is M. Caesar Curant," Rengar said. Orgrim turned his head and glanced at Caesar. He was much younger than he remembered, but he still looked treacherous and didn't look like a good guy. Caesar, he was also panicking at this time. He had clearly heard that Doflamingo was looking for him, so why did he become such a vicious guy like Orgrim? "Caesar, right? I won't talk nonsense to you. I have a need for you. From today on, you will join my Warhammer pirates and work for me. Is that okay?" Orgrim looked at Caesar and said directly. After hearing this, Caesar nodded instantly and said with a dog-licking look, "It is an honor for me, Caesar, to be able to serve you, Master Hammer. What about the Navy? I didn't want to do anything with them for a long time, they were too pedantic." Caesar also knew very well that he could still reason with the Navy. Even if he failed, the Navy would not kill him directly. At most, he would be imprisoned in Imperial. But with Orgrim, it is completely useless for you to reason with him. He is the most cruel and evil pirate in the world. If he gets angry, it is not impossible that he will be directly sunk to the bottom of the sea and fed to the fish. So Caesar is very spineless. Chosen to join the Warhammer pirates. Orgrim nodded. He didn't care about Caesar's loyalty at all, as long as he could do things for himself. Even if he had the guts, he wouldn't dare to run away. No more. After paying attention to this guy, Orgrim looked at Rengar and asked, "How is it? Has the Lieutenant General been found out?" "After the trial, we will quickly pass through the Gate of Justice and head to Imperial. The second master and Dai Peng are interrogating. Dai Peng's ability has a certain charm effect, so there should be no big problem." Rengar smiled and said. This guy Caesar was confused. "What's going on? Didn't you just save me and leave? Why are you going to Impelton again?" At this moment, Beckman and Garp came together, walked out. Then, Garp gradually transformed, and then returned to his original appearance. The identity of a naval hero is easy to use. After the transformation, I used some charm power to quickly find out everything about that guy, Dai Peng smiled and said. Her phantom beast species, the nine-tailed fox, is very powerful and can transform into other people's forms. She just used Garp's image. Although the vice admiral knew it was a fake, but combined with the ability of charm, it didn't take long. So that he believed it to be true, and then revealed all the passwords for crossing the gate of justice this time. Orgrim smiled and asked, "What is the password?" "All for justice," Beckman said, a little funny. "It's that simple?" Orgrim asked in surprise. "I was also surprised, but in fact, it is that simple," Beckman said with a smile. "Okay, without further ado, Plank, use your ability to make our ship invisible and follow it below the warship. Let's go directly through the Gate of Justice and head to Impelton," Orgrim ordered. "Yes, Mr. Hammer," Glank responded with a smile. In the surprise attack just now, Plank made the Black Narwhal, the overlord of the deep sea, invisible. Then, he came out directly from under the sea and hit the Navy on the warship. Caught off guard. With Doflamingo's ability, they couldn't even send out a signal that they were attacked. This ship was commanded by a vice admiral named Sablundo. This guy's strength, not too bad. Orgrim beat him up when he came up. If he didn't want to get some information from his mouth and showed mercy, he would probably lie down when 3 or 5 of them got together. I have to admit, vice admirals in the Navy have varying strengths. There are strong ones like Sakaski and Porisalino, and there are novices like Sablondo. Orgrim has never heard of his name, so I think he will come. Before the plot begins many years later, the lieutenant general has already died, right? After Gangplank left with some people, Orgrim had also put on the disguise of the Navy. The one with the rank of Major General with the cloak of justice draped over his shoulders, he seems quite handsome. Back then, I also thought about whether to become a Navy or something. If I really join the Navy, I should be sitting in the position of a Navy Admiral now. Last but not least, there must be a candidate for General, right? Orgrim patted his shoulder, swept away the dust on his general rank, and said with a smile. After a while, Beckman, Doflamingo, and others also put on Navy uniforms. Although their temperament, still somewhat unlike the Navy of Justice, but it was somewhat disguised. Soon, the warship, which had been occupied by pirates, sailed towards the Gate of Justice again, and Katerina, Daipeng had also transformed into Lieutenant General Sablondo at this time. Then, the Black Narwhal also quickly became invisible, and then sank under the sea, sailing in the shadow of the warship. In the cabin of the warship, Orgrim and others continued to discuss this operation. There are many powerful guys among Imperialton. Master Hammer, don't you plan to rescue them all together? Maybe they will be willing to join your banner, Doflamingo smiled and asked. Orgrim and Beckman both laughed when they heard this, and then Orgrim said, "It's not that I haven't thought about this, but Dove, first, most of those bastards are unruly people. Even if they are rescued, they may not come with me. Second, there are many people inside, but they were all sent in by Boss Shiji. Even if not, most of them have a grudge against Boss Shiji. In addition, the main goal of this operation is to rescue Boss Shiji, and the rest are secondary, so we must be quick, and there is no time to screen these people who have any grudge against us or not." Beckman also smiled and said, "Of course, if the situation goes bad, it is not impossible to release all the people and cause a bigger commotion, but the main thing is to see how the situation changes and to rescue Boss Shiji as the first element," Orgrim said. Doflamingo nodded after hearing this, but didn't ask any more questions. Not long after, the huge warship arrived in front of the Gate of Justice, and then Daipeng followed the Gate of Justice on the deck. The defenders had a conversation, and the huge Gate of Justice slowly opened. Then, the warship quickly passed through the Gate of Justice and officially entered the whirlpool current. At this point, Orgrim and others felt when it arrived, the speed of the ship increased a lot. No wonder the Navy headquarters was so fast in supporting Impelton. At the same time, in the deep-sea prison Impelton City, Impelton. It was called the Infinite Hell in the 6th floor. Shiji is leaning against the dark wall of the prison. His feet are restricted by sea-tower stone shackles, and he looks a little embarrassed. The black and white striped prison uniform symbolizes the prison uniform of Shiji. Identity. Although he was imprisoned by the sea-tower stone, Shiji still did not fall. At this time, the power of domineering slowly flowed in him. Soon, Shiji opened his eyes. The domineering power in him also quickly dissipated. Dropped again, my power, Shiji whispered softly. It has been more than half a year since he was imprisoned. Although Shiji has not found a way to escape from prison, he has not given up. He is polishing his strength every day. But because the environment here is very unfavorable, very humid and dark, and the food is not very nutritious. Moreover, Shiji still has a rudder hanging on his head, so not only has his strength not improved, he has not even stabilized. Stay stable, but it has dropped a lot. Hateful, Shiji cursed secretly, feeling a little unhappy. After living in Impelton for half a year, Shiji also observed a lot. It can be said that there is really no chance of escaping here, especially the 6th floor, which is very tightly guarded. As for expecting someone to save him, Shiji really never thought about it. Occasionally he would think of Orgrim, but he also felt that although he had a good relationship with Orgrim, he would have to take such a risk to save him. It seems a bit fanciful. Moreover, even if Orgrim wants to come to the rescue, he may not have the strength. In the end, you still have to rely on yourself. After thinking about it, Shiji looked at his legs. He wanted to break free from the sea-tower stone shackles, but it was impossible. But what if he broke his legs? But this is just an idea. Shiji will not make such a decision before he reaches the end of his rope. Well, Shiji sighed softly, leaned against the wall again, slowly closed his eyes, and rested. Boss, we are about to rob the prison. Please support me by giving me some flowers and monthly tickets. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 230. At the gate of Impelton prison, Magellan, the deputy director of the prison, had already walked out. Behind him was a large group of jailers. Hannibal was also following him, and on the other side of him stood Shiryu the Rain. Is the ship coming? Magellan asked. In Imperialton, the director of the prison is no longer in charge of things. He has been on vacation recently. Basically, Magellan is responsible for all the big and small things in the prison. Many things. Everyone can see that Magellan will probably lose the word deputy to that deputy director in a short time. According to the news from the front, the warship has passed through the second gate of justice. Hannibal responded. That'll be soon, Magellan nodded, and then he saw a small black spot on the sea, slowly approaching. He had no doubts about this warship escort mission. After all, this kind of thing happens several times a month, sometimes even 2 or 3 times a day. There are countless evil gangs imprisoned in Impelton, all from these places, and there have been no accidents before. As if he had thought of something, Magellan turned his head and glanced at Ziliu, and said, Ziliu, the prisoner this time is M. Caesar Carant, who originally belonged to the scientific force of the Navy. There are others facing him above. Arrangement, don't just kill him casually. This guy Ziliu was Magellan's deputy, and now he is officially the warden. Although this guy is a member of the world government, he is very bloodthirsty and often tortures and kills prisoners in Impelton. Magellan talked about him many times and even locked him up sometimes, but it still had no effect. What arrangement? 11 Lu bit a cigar and asked very impatiently. Maybe after being locked up here for 3 to 5 years, he will be reactivated, so he cannot die, Magellan said in a deep voice. Although Caesar is treacherous and always likes to do evil things, he has a very bad reputation in the Navy's scientific force. But you have to say that his technology is still very good. The government's punishment for him this time is to send him to Impelton to serve his sentence to sharpen his character. When he is almost done, he will be released and reactivated. I see, Shilio nodded and responded. Although he is still bloodthirsty, he has not yet broken up with Magellan, and now he has no thoughts of rebellion in his heart. Since the world government keeps Caesar useful, there is no need to kill him. Anyway, since there are so many prisoners in Pelton, who should be killed? Not long after, the huge warship sailed into the port of Imperial. Then, Lieutenant General Sablondo came down with some people. Magellan saw Caesar, who was chained by sea tower stone shackles, and there was a slight smile on his lips. Lieutenant General Sablondo, I haven't seen you for a while. I thought you were no longer responsible for escorting these prisoners. Magellan smiled and went up to say hello. Sablondo smiled and said, everything is for justice. I will obey any orders from above. Magellan nodded, but he always felt that this group of navy was a little strange, but he couldn't tell what was strange. In that case, please hand over Caesar to us, Impelton, Magellan said with a smile. Sablondo nodded, then seemed to hesitate for a moment, and said, Magellan, Caesar's identity is quite special. I know, I have received a message from above, saying that we must ensure his safety, and he may be activated later. Don't worry, we will make a good arrangement for him. Magellan nodded and responded. No. I mean, we at the Navy headquarters need to see it with our own eyes. Sablondo said. Magellan frowned slightly and asked, what do you mean? Can we enter Impelton? Sablondo said in a deep voice. This is not possible. Unfortunately, even you must have an order from the Marshal before you can enter Impelton, but we did not receive such an order. Magellan shook his head and said very firmly. We are old acquaintances, can you please be accommodating? I might as well have an explanation when I go back, Sablondo smiled and said. Just because we are old acquaintances, Lieutenant General Sablondo, please don't ask me to make mistakes. Magellan smiled and shook his head and said. Is there really no discussion? Sablondo asked again without giving up. Really not, Magellan spoke. However, before he could finish speaking, a hot breath suddenly hit his face. In Magellan's sight, a rear admiral standing behind Lieutenant General Sablondo suddenly pulled out a sledgehammer from behind. The sledgehammer exuded a hot breath, and without saying a word, he moved towards it. He smashed it over himself. In a hurry, Magellan never expected that such a thing would happen. His whole body was directly hit by a hammer, and his upper body was smashed to pieces. At the same time, Hannibal seemed to have reacted and exclaimed, enemy attack. Sound the alarm and notify the Navy headquarters. As soon as he finished speaking, Hank raised his hand and slashed at him. Hannibal raised the trident in his hand and blocked Hank's knife directly. Shilio's eyes were filled with excitement, and the thunderstorm hanging on his waist was unsheathed, with a cold light. Slashed at Hank. But before his blade fell, another navy took action, and the Black Sword Knight appeared from under the cloak of justice. As a swordsman, Shilio recognized this sword at just one glance. Joracole, my hawk? You are the Warhammer pirates, Zilio said angrily. Gee, ha 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 ha, I originally wanted to get along well with you, but I can't. Orgrim laughed and pulled off the cloak of justice. As he finished speaking, Imperialton's alarm also sounded. Then, suddenly a mud ball ejected from the ground and hit Orgrim directly. Orgrim swung the warhammer in his hand and knocked the mud ball away. At the same time, Shilio, who had been smashed by Orgrim's hammer, actually resolidified. Mud was constantly flowing on his body, making him look like an ooze monster. Natural system, Orgrim murmured in surprise. The poison fruit was eaten by Beckman. He did originally doubt whether Magellan had any other abilities, but it turned out that this guy had actually become a natural type Esper. Why does this ability look so familiar? Think about it again. Shit, isn't this the swamp fruit? That ability that is called the shame of the natural system? The swamp fruit is indeed a natural ability. Originally, it should be used in many years later, he was killed by that unlucky pirate, Caribou ate it. How come it's in Magellan's hands now? And Orgrim was even more surprised that Magellan actually ate this natural shame. Hosgarot Orgrim, you dare to attack Imperialton, but that's fine, don't leave once you're here, Magellan roared angrily. Then, the ground under his feet was quickly assimilated, and the endless swamp began to spread. The Impelton jailers seemed not to be affected at all, and they walked on the swamp as if they were on the ground. But Grim and the others' feet were already stuck in the mud. At this moment, the revolver in Beckman's hand fired, and a toxin bullet hit Magellan directly. Magellan's chest quickly turned into the purple poison on Magellan's chest was quickly disappearing. Then, Magellan heard a puff sound from his chest and spit out a purple mud ball. He actually excreted the toxins from his body so quickly. The shockwave under Orgrim's feet exploded instantly, directly blowing a big hole out of the swamp covering his feet. At the same time, everyone also escaped from the swamp. Don't talk nonsense to him, Beckman, according to the plan, you go to rescue Boss Shiji, I have fought with him, Orgrim roared. Then, the warhammer in his hand brought a burning breath, and then the hammer hit Magellan's figure again. The bite of the mire, Magellan roared angrily, raised his arms, and quickly released a large amount of mud in his hands. Orgrim hit the mud with the hammer, and the powerful shockwave exploded the mud, but soon, the hammer hit as he sank into the mud, Orgrim felt a sluggish feeling in his hands. My ability is to absorb everything, including your impact, as Magellan spoke, filthy mud flowed from his body. But Beckman and others had already crossed over, defeated some jailers, and rushed into Impelton. Mihawk, on the other hand, followed Shilio all the way to the other side of the square in front of the Imperial Gate, and their slashes were still flying randomly. Orgrim suddenly pulled the warhammer out of the mud swamp, and then laughed and said, it seems that this ability is very powerful in your hands. Magellan looked very cold and said, your subordinates are not after entering Impelton, you may be able to escape, but now, they may not be able to get out, my ability is invincible in Imperial. As soon as Magellan finished speaking, a large amount of mud began to spread again, and in a moment, the gate of Imperial was sealed. Invincible, haha, as long as I kill you, everything will be solved. Orgrim sneered, exerted force with his feet, swung the warhammer in his hand, and rushed towards Magellan. The transformation of mud, Magellan shouted, raised his arm, and grabbed Orgrim. The warhammer in Orgrim's hand roared, and the powerful shockwave carried heat waves, directly smashing Magellan's arm. At the same time, the warhammer also covered Magellan's tall body. One hammer hit Magellan's chest, and this hammer was armed and domineering. It's too late to elementalize it, right? Orgrim thought in his heart. Do you think I can elementalize? Magellan's voice suddenly reached Orgrim's ears. At this moment, although the warhammer sank into Magellan's chest and was armed and domineering, it seemed that, didn't it cause any injuries to Magellan? As long as the swamp fruit's ability is developed in the right direction, in most cases, it does not need to be elementalized, because the swamp itself can swallow everything, Magellan said in a deep voice. As he finished speaking, the huge mud arm grabbed Orgrim.